Welcome to part 2 of Life with Zai. So we get Zaire home, and everything seems pretty much normal at this point. It was about 1.5 to 2 months where I noticed, like, if I getting ready to lay Zaire down on the bed or something, he would just act like he was so startled, like scared, and he would just like it would like he would jump and just you know flare his hands or his arms. And at first, I didn't really think. I thought didn't think too much of it, but I didn't experience this with my other kids. So I've been getting to Google, of course, and Google was like it's infantile spasms. It could be normal or it could be seizures. And so I started to try to put them down super easy, and I'm already putting them down slow. So but just started to do it slower and easier. It kind of helped a little bit. He will still do it every now and then, but his next appointment I did tell his doctor my concerns and stuff, and she basically said it was normal, don't worry about it. Okay, so he eventually did stop doing those. And and fast forward a little bit, he just wasn't hitting his milestones um, when he should have been hitting them, like crawling, sitting up, and things like that. And I noticed his head would stay tilted to one side, and he couldn't move his head all the way to one side. One side he could turn it all the way, but the other it would only go like halfway. So again, I tell his doctor all my concerns, and she gets him started with physical therapy. So we get that started on top of, I had heard about a program, a Sooner Start, where they come to your home and they work with your child on um, helping them, meet those milestones and things like that, and helping you as well, doing things at home for them. So we started that. Everything was good, and fast forward to he was 11 months, and he got sick. Zaire got sick out of nowhere. It was something like I had never seen, and he wasn't himself. He looked visibly looked sick, but it wasn't like he had a cold or anything. He just looked miserable, and he was very lethargic. He was just laying around like he didn't have any energy or anything. And he would have a fever. And so I took him to the hospital, and they ran tests. Everything came back negative, and they just put him on some antibiotics. They put him on amoxicillin, just to, if in case they missed any infection or anything. So, and they sent us home. So he did it kind of get a little better on the third day. He was slowly trying to get back to himself. He wasn't fully there, but he was talking more, or babbling. He wasn't really talking, but it seemed like he was improving. So we're at church this day, and my husband's preaching. I'm in nursery, and Zaire is sitting in a little infant chair, and I'm giving him animal crackers, as I usually do, and he's just sitting there eating his animal crackers. And just all of a sudden, he just noticed out of the corner of my eye, his head was like moving. So I just looked at him, and it was shaking it like like this, and it stopped. And I'm like, was he doing that? And so I wanted to have my phone ready so I can record it just in case it happened again, and it did. So I start recording, and this time he's kind of getting a little fussy, like irritated. So I'm like, I don't think he's doing this, on his own. So after service, I tell my husband, I think we need to take him to the ER to get him checked out, and he had stopped, so my husband didn't really get to see it at that time. So he was just unsure. He's like, I don't know, but let's take him anyways. So we get there, and it starts in, like, by this time he done started, and it's not stopping. And so in the waiting room, we're waiting. We finally get called back. They're hooking him up, getting his numbers, and doing tests. They don't know, and he starts to get worse. My husband's holding him, and just different parts of his body is moving involuntary. And now my husband's like freaking out, like, you guys got to do something, like, look at him. And I remember in my husband was holding him, and he just went limp, like completely limp. And we knew it was really getting serious. And so they called Oklahoma City, which is 2 hours away, our closest, big hospital. They were full, so they ended up having to call Dallas, and Dallas had a bed for him, or Dallas said they would take him. So we're waiting on the helicopter, and we're calling family and friends and letting them know everything, keep us in prayer. Families, getting on the road. We're trying to get a head start, and just hop on the road, because the helicopter, of course, is going to get there way before us, and we're not going to be there when he gets there. So we're trying to hurry up and just leave, and we get there. He is in the PICU. He's on a ventilator. He's heavily sedated. And I mean, he's just hooked up to all these. He's hooked up to EEG, like his head is covered. I mean, it just, it to any parent, it was so scary seeing your little tiny baby, hooked up to all these machines, right? And it was so overwhelming, and so scary. And we didn't know what to think or do in the situation. We had never experienced something so serious ever. And we are just praying, believing God, because these doctors, this more advanced, bigger hospital, they still can't even give us answers at the moment. They're running test after test, and they have nothing. So, of course, I'm on Google. I'm Googling symptoms, and just everything, everything is popping up. Like, it could be anything. So eventually, I stopped, trying to stay off Google, and yeah. So a week later was his birthday. They ended up decorating his room really nice, and the big banner. We got him some balloons. They brought in some, new toys for him, and he's not even aware. It was just, it was, it was, it was, I guess, a good thing, in such a bad situation. It kind of, uplifted us. It was a nice thing that they did, but it was hard. So a week after his birthday, so a total of 2 weeks in the NICU, not NICU, PICU. Total of 2 weeks in the PICU, and they take him off the vent, lowered his sedation, and he wakes up, and that felt good. Um, and he we're like, okay, it looks brighter. We get moved to uh, a regular floor, and the twitching has started back, and I'm just like, still no answers. Twitching is back. Um, yeah, we're just. It seemed like it was the longest. He was there for about a month, and just in those um, in those days, we brought our Bibles. We are at the church, at the hospital. We're praying, we're staying in prayer, we're believing God. Me, um, my faith was, although it was pretty scary. I just knew this is the enemy. And my faith was on 10. I knew that this was the enemy. And when we come out of this hospital, Zaire's going to be completely healed. There's going to be no trace or evidence of this even happening. I was praying and believing that. And I just knew it was the enemy just trying to get us, to attack us, right? So I ain't gonna lie, like in the beginning, I was good. Like we my son is going to be healed. We coming up out of this. We're not going to have to deal with this anymore. That's why they can't, find any answers. So I really wasn't too tripping. It was, as far as like coming home, like in me, like I knew I was going to, when we went home, we weren't going to have to deal with this, if that makes sense. Like, yes, it was scary and all that, and it was frustrating that they didn't have answers, but I was like, they don't have answers because this is a lie from hell. So that was my take on it in the beginning. Faith was on 10. Um, and like I said, those 30 days, my husband was having to go back and forth. He had took off a lot of work. He stayed for quite a while, but we still had our other kids at home. Our girls were, old enough to, stay there. And um, I think my daughter was like 15. They were like 15 and 16. So they were old enough to stay at the house and watch their younger brothers and stuff. And it was the summertime, so they didn't have to worry about going to school or anything else. But my husband was like constantly going back. Like he would be, home during the week, and every weekend he's coming back, and that was for the longest. Um, he ran up a big old toll bill too. But yeah, so like I said, it was just a time of me getting closer with God. Like when I'm there at the hospital by myself, it was a time that I can just really stay in my word, talking to God constantly. I wasn't gonna let, the enemy win. I wasn't gonna let the enemy get to me or, try to discourage me. And so his twitching, has started back. Uh, but this was supposed to be our new norm. And they had him on all these um, seizure medications. I believe he was on like 6 of them when he went home. A lot. And that was very overwhelming because all I could think was, when I get home, I got to do this. And it was very intimidating. I didn't think that I was going to be able to handle it, or I was equipped to handle, bringing him home. So I was a bit nervous, honestly, about going home. So in the beginning, they did um, a, a big test that took almost a month to come back, and now it's back. And um, they said that he had a POG gene mutation, and they diagnosed him with MCHS. I cannot pronounce it, but um, it's basically a mitochondrial disease, and the this disease is like an umbrella of many other illnesses underneath. And so doctors told me not to Google, like, because it was just, you can find some scary things on there. So he was like, not, don't Google, you don't want to freak out and stuff like that. And at the time, I don't know. I don't know if we were just like in shock, like something came back, like we just really weren't understanding, honestly. And we didn't ask questions. I don't know if I was scared to ask questions at the time, but through the years I would always think to myself, I wish I would have asked questions. But now uh I think that it happened for a reason that I didn't ask questions, because I think God kept me from that, because um, it just would have been so hard. I wouldn't have been able to, um, I don't know. I don't know if I would have been able to take it back then, if that makes sense. I don't know. I think God was protecting me, both of us, maybe. I don't know. But I believe there was a reason why we didn't ask questions. And I'm still shocked to this day that we didn't. I don't know. We were in shock. I don't know. But I couldn't really find too much. I did try to, Google some stuff, and like he said, that so many other things were just popping up. So I just didn't want to, I couldn't pinpoint exactly, you know, what his situation was. So I was really clueless. I didn't know um, if this was going to like be his whole life, or what. I really didn't. I didn't know. And like I said, it was kind of dumb on my part, not asking more questions. But like I said, I'm kind of glad I didn't. So got the diagnosis, um, and yeah, we're just moving. We right after that we go home uh, a week from that, and like I said, I was nervous to go home, because um, I didn't think I was uh, what is the word? I didn't think I was. I don't know. I just didn't think that, you know. I don't know. It was just scary, bringing him home on all these meds. I'm like scared I'm gonna miss a dose and something's gonna happen, or or I don't know. So many things ran through my head, but I was tired of staying in the hospital. I was tired of being away from my other kids. Um, so I was ready to go home, and I kind of wasn't at the same time. But we go home. We get home. The other kids are, happy to see Zaire. He still has this twitching um, in his head. Uh, And one of the meds that he went home on, we were supposed to start weaning him off of it slowly because it was a stronger med and it was like uh, keeping him more sedated. So we started, we were following the protocols to slowly, wean him off that medication. And maybe a month or so after Zaire was home, we one night it was late and I was holding him and he just he really started twitching really really bad. And so I immediately tell my husband we got to get to the hospital. So we're my husband is holding him while I'm trying to get to the hospital as fast as I can. And it was dark, like we couldn't see in the car. We didn't know we he was making like funny noises and on the way there. And when we got to the hospital, um, I was gonna my husband told me like just pull up to the door and you take him in and I'll park the car. We don't got time to find a parking spot. And I'm like, okay. So I get out the car and I grab Zaire and he was he was blue and it was like the life was just about out of him. It was limp and I rushed him into the ER. I'm like, my son's not breathing. He has seizures. Da 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 da. They immediately send us, grab him to the back, and just all these doctors and nurses are around him, asking me, what happened, and I tell them, you know, everything, and like he's been having seizures, and this happened. That was super scary, looking down at your baby and them just being lifeless. Like, I don't know, that excuse me, that really did something to me that day. I don't know, I'll never forget that. But on they get them on oxygen and everything, and they're they're doing everything to get him. I can't even remember everything. It was just so crazy. He ended up having to get on the ventilator. Um, they were at first they were like bagging him and stuff, and then of course vent. And yeah, we're back in the hospital. There we was there. He was there for about a couple weeks until we came home, and oh man, now I'm really like, okay, like what in the world is going on? This can't like this can't be our new normal. Like, I don't I don't know. It was just it was very hard to um, deal with at that time. One good thing that did happen at the hospital, um, they went up on one of his meds, I believe. They were able to get the twitchings to stop because they were determined. Unlike the last hospital, they were like, we're not gonna worry about that. It's we're they weren't worried about it. But this was a different hospital. and they were persistent in trying to get the twitching to stop. And by the time we did go home, it had stopped. So I was grateful for that. But they did end up having to go up on his meds. So um, now I'm just really, really on edge with them. We're still, just trying to live somewhat a normal life, and uh, at the time we're pioneering a church, and we got other kids, just so much going on, and yeah, so I'm just like really being careful about just anything, any triggers, trying to figure out those, and what that last situation, I believe that when we started going down on that medication is what triggered that seizure. So he's finally off that medication that he was weaning off. And if y'all hear Zaire in the back, those are happy noises. He's good. So at this point, we are just in and out of hospital. And that is our new norm. Y'all, bear with me. That is all for part 2. Look out for part